In the daily financial news from December 11th, we learned that inflation is unfortunately going up. CPI headline went from 2.6 to 2.7. We also learned that core inflation is sitting at a stubborn 3.3% for the last 4 months. So the question is, how can the three amigos use inflation to get rich? What are we going to be doing different given inflation is a problem? Let's welcome Dion and Matt to the show. Dion, how you doing?
Howdy, I'm doing great. I believe the inflation is intentional and needed.
I think there is a lot to that. We will unpack that in a minute. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing just as well as Dion, and I agree with him 100%. It's intentional and it's needed.
So let's break that down, because I think that's the first thing that maybe not a lot of people realize is I absolutely agree with you. In fact, I agree with you so much. I have a shirt that says inflation's a feature, not a bug. So let's kind of unpack that. Dion, you were on the live this morning. You saw the questions come from the community. So why don't you lay some groundwork here, and Matt and I will go deeper. What is it? Why is it intentional, and why is it needed?
So there's three aspects that I could use to explain why I think it's intentional and it's needed. So the first one is a history example, right? Abraham Lincoln, 16th president, has a war to abolish taking advantage of other people. It ends that entire era of the United States. Well, now people had to be paid to do that work. That causes inflation. So what we have is a current version of that today. People are saying, I'm absolutely okay with things coming from China because the sweatshop can pay so low that they can ship it to us for less than we can make it here. So as long as it's cheap for me, I'm okay with those people being taken advantage of. Tariffs are going to end, or at least mitigate that, right? So now it has to be made in the US, where people want an actual real wage. And then people go, well, if we deport 11 million people, who's going to work the farmlands? Who's going to work the fields? And I'm like, okay, so why do they work the fields? They're willing to not get compensated for overtime, not be paid minimum wage. Now we keep removing the labor force that could be taken advantage of. Yeah, things are going to cost more. But this, I'm going to be making a video in the next couple of weeks as soon as I get it all detailed out of how the middle class is going to be stronger in the next couple of years, because a lot of jobs are going to return to the middle class, which is going to cause inflation, which is
yeah. So there's a lot in that, and one of the things that you've hit on is just quite simply labor, right? Historically speaking, the U.S. has imported deflation from foreign countries. It was Japan, then it's China, now it's Vietnam, whatever. All right. It's easier to manufacture, or cheaper, I should say, cheaper to manufacture a widget at the dollar store or Dollar General or Walmart or Target or, whatever retailer. And we're just importing deflation and really exporting manufacturing. So the first thing I want to highlight is you're absolutely right. The anchor of the middle class historically, if you go back to the 50s and 60s and 70s, was manufacturing, right? Manufacturing was a very much a labor-intensive thing. And by hollowing out the middle class, aka exporting manufacturing to cheaper locations, the average consumer probably felt better, but there was a whole set of communities that were just destroyed. Look at what happened to Michigan and the upper Northwest when basically they exported auto manufacturing. So there's a lot in there. Matt, where do you want to go on this topic next?
Let's talk about the white collar guys. I think the white collar guys are in trouble. They're in trouble. All these data analysis groups and analysts, a lot of the stuffed shirts that are in management in a lot of these companies are going to be in deep trouble when you have one programmer that knows how to use AI. And so I think there's a big reckoning coming for these fake $150K a year employees. The real $150K a year employees, the plumbers, the even sheetrock guys. And yeah, some of my sheetrock guys make 150 grand a year, but before you think they're overpaid, they outwork your ass. They work 10s and 12s and they work 6 days a week. And so, keep it in your pants. So I think a lot of people get really and I think that a lot of them are immigrants as well, and they send money home. I think I think the white collar economy is going to be in deep trouble.
Yeah, it's funny where this conversation is going. I made a video, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, basically highlighting how I think Gen Z is going to be fundamentally different than millennials and Gen X and baby boomers. Probably more like baby boomers if you look historically.
Yes,
where it'll be more blue collar than white collar. I think we've lived through an era where there was this go to college, get a good job. You guys know the story. And the goal was to get a white collar job. I think that's going to fundamentally change. It won't change quickly. It's not like you're going to see this in 2025. But I think if you look back at 2035, right, a decade, I think you're absolutely right. I think white collar jobs. In fact, I'm willing to make the following statement. I think 2025 might go down as a white collar recession.
I think it absolutely will. No, I think it absolutely will. I mean, all of these, from the enterprise software space, Mike, you're just a few more years removed than I am. But from the enterprise software, you still hear it with your friends.
Yeah.
But, that space is going to get absolutely torched. Now, the funny thing is everyone's like, oh, well, I don't like using a salesperson to buy stuff. And I don't like using a salesperson to sell stuff. Newsflash, we're required because everybody will use one because they want the advantage over a bot. So so sales guys, they're going to be just fine like they always are. When you can start compiling code 100 times faster, when you can start searching and QAing your code without having to actually have anything more than a couple people monitoring the bots that are doing that work, bad news, guys, you're screwed. And so there's going to be a lot of these college educated people. I think that's where I see the biggest crisis is in the college debt. Because I think a lot of these guys, if you look at how long it takes them to repay their college debt, it's 10 and 20 years. Well, you better reinvent yourself the next 5 because you're going to be porked.
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. Again, I think there's some hopeful things. So I think what we're really pointing at, and I think you and I both saw it in software, is I think this notion of a 10X engineer, which was the best of the best, typically you had 5 to 15% of your total engineers were called 10X engineers or like title. I think there's going to be a lot more 10X engineers because a first line guy could do, more. The second thing I think will happen is, and this is, I think, a net positive and maybe is not as dark as the picture you were painting. I actually think there's going to be a lot more startups that grow to quite significant size with like 5 people. Right. So I think we might be shocked that, the startup community, the solopreneur, I'll go this far. I bet you there'll be a company that's created that does 100 million with less than 10 employees.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I think the bigger issue that you're going to have is, and this is where I think it has to get dark. I think where it has to get dark is that as you see these organizations, right, every single 100 employees an organization grows, they lose productivity.
Oh, no doubt.
Right. And so you see it where it's like, hey, this thing is such a big, fat, heavy, and thanks to Elon and Vivek, they're going to gut these 6-figure government employees that are professional paper pushers. They're going to gut that place. And so I think that housing areas around centralized government where that is, I think that stuff is going to suffer big time.
So the thing that's in our favor, from this topic comes from Angel's question during the live stream this morning, during the one rental at a time daily update. And how does inflation impact the one rental at a time community? And for a couple of years, Mike, you've put in several videos the white collar recession. It's not really impacting the trades because those are becoming more in demand.
Sure.
And you did a video recently with Casey from Brick by Brick on the classes of class A, B, C, D real estate, and I suggest people check it out in the lineup. I specifically target class C properties. I might have a B minus. I don't want to own D in the war zone, but those class C properties are going to see more demand because people who lose their $150,000 fake job that can't replace it really quick, that have to go out and start at the, I want to say entry level, but they're a little bit older in the trades, will make plenty to live in a class C rental. So the demand for class C will go up. The people working in the trades that have been living in our class C properties might be upgrading to a class B or B plus rental, which lets us do a nice, easy reno and massive rent increase because we have that tenant that's been in there for a while. So I've said this in several videos. I'm always the most concerned for the person whose only source of income is their W-2.
Yeah.
But the question was, how does this impact the one rental at a time community? We're the people who own the assets, encouraging people to own the assets who benefit from the inflation that's coming. But we have to be a little strategic about it. I don't want to own a Class A, high-end, $5,000 a month, one-bedroom rental in an area right now that's going to tank in the next couple of years. I don't want to own that luxury thing. I want to own the work-a-day rental that's going to increase in value, go up in rent, have plenty of demand when whatever white-collar, blue-collar, complete recession hits, more demand for those rentals. That's what this community is going to see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there. Again, you're going to have to be very localized. And I think about all the Class A product coming to the Southwest and, like Austin and Phoenix and some of these markets that are very white collar oriented, right? A lot of tech jobs, if you will. Yep. And if we really have a white collar recession that maybe starts in 25 and maybe gets worse in 26, to your point, Dion, there'll be a fight to keep those things occupied. Right. I talked to Anna Kelly yesterday, and she has some assets in Texas that they're trying to lease up. And she's having a hard time because there's a Class A building right down the street that's giving away 2 months free, given half deposits. It's all this competitive stuff that I saw in like 2006 and 7. So you're absolutely right. If a white collar recession gets some teeth, you're going to see the impact in the Class A assets, and people will just downsize. Yep. Right, they'll go to that Class B and C stuff. So I think that's rock solid. The other thing that I think about the ORAT community is the fact that we've always preached 30-year debt. Right, people really don't understand how beautiful, powerful, and unique the ability is to borrow 30 years at even today sub 8%, sub 7% for some people. In a world where inflation is half that at 3%, it's like you're printing money because you get all the upside, right? All the value increase from inflation is yours to keep. All the value and rent increase is yours to keep. And when you map out inflation over a decade, inflation's a feature, not a bug, right, Matt?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, thank God I own a ton of B and C units. Thank God that 88% of my debt is 30-year fixed rate debt. I've got 12% of my debt that isn't, and it's stuff that I've, recently and newly acquired. But because I acquired it with a lot of 1031 money, didn't make a hill of beans difference because I was able to pay more down on the asset. And so I have a lower payment, and in some cases take out 15-year debt. I've got a few buildings that we took out 15-year debt on, and I get the reset at 7. So, big deal. But yeah, I think that, 30-year fixed rate debt is always the way to go. Dupes, tries, and quads. If you aren't buying those, I don't know why you're not buying them. That's still the asset that's going to be the best asset performing for the next decade, because there's going to be more people house hacking. There's going to be there's not nearly enough of brand new supply that is even affordable.
Yeah. Let me stop you there. I mean, are you guys seeing anybody build fourplexes? I mean, I'm seeing in my community some 50s and 6, like the biggest or the smallest stuff I'm seeing built is like 50 units. I'm not really seeing any real big communities with fourplex. Are you seeing that?
I'm seeing a little bit of it. The problem is that they're doing it now because now these fourplexes, they are selling, 120-year-old fourplexes are selling over $1 million now where I am.
Oh God.
They're over $1 million.
What could you build property that taunts me with dead equity that Matt talks about.
All the time.
I purchased a fourplex 5 years ago now. Next month will be 5 years. 590.
Okay.
1.6, maybe 1.5 all day long. So it's tripled in 5 years. And my duplex has doubled, but the fourplexes, because to your point, Mike, I've seen 2 in our entire, all 3 counties I invest, 2 fourplexes were built since 2020 that I've seen. There might be some because I don't drive every street.
Yeah.
I do look for the new builds, and I've seen a ton, and I love seeing them. 50 unit.
Yeah, exactly.
Units going up. I'm like, oh, yep, my rent just went up 20%. Please build some more.
Yeah, it did. Heck yeah.
That fourplex in 5 years went up $1 million.
Yeah. And it's, I think if rates spike up to 8 or 9 consistently, it'll probably
It'll come down a little.
1.3 a little bit, but it's not going to get it. It
My-
cash flows
when-
beautifully. So I'm not going to
Yeah.
mess with it, but
Like 15 years ago, I was buying duplexes for 150,
Yeah.
and now they don't trade for less than 6. So quadruple in 14, 15 years. Now, the funny thing is people are like, oh, look at all that appreciation. Dude, I can't spend the appreciation. I don't give a flying flip. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But you know what I can do? I can sell it.
Yeah.
I can, and I've sold some of them where I was just like, there's just way too much money sitting in that building. Just way too much. Or I've I've been able to relever it. I mean, Convoy was like 765 on a DSCR 30.
Mhm.
That's an amazing rate compared to like the banks are still high 6s, low 7s.
Yeah.
Like for DSCR to be a half a point higher, like those guys are doing it right.
Yeah.
You know,
I love the guys at Convoy. They've helped me
They're
out
awesome.
a bunch.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
great.
So let's talk about how the ORAC community can use this, right? We happen to be in the situation where we have portfolios, and as we've just talked about for 20 minutes, we're gonna benefit because we already own stuff.
Mhm.
Let's talk about the person that maybe doesn't own any yet, or they only own 1 or 2. They're still in build phase. I would argue all 3 of us are in chill phase.
Mhm.
So if you're still in build phase and you're looking at, a decade where we may have higher inflation than we want, what would you be doing if you're in that community? Dion, we'll go to you first.
so I'll use 2 examples. One, BuzzTune in the comments, Mikey,
Mhm.
basically starts almost a year ago, acquires 3 rentals. This year, it's going to be challenging. He just closed on his last one last month, right? So 3 in 1 year. It's phenomenal.
Uh-huh.
He's going to feel every repair feels like it's coming out of his pocket.
Yep.
All the down payments he sees went from his bank account. He doesn't see the cash flow yet because he hasn't had a couple of years for rent increases, an opportunity to refinance to a lower rate, all the things that can make the cash flow grow.
Mhm.
People seem to think the next 10 years are never going to happen. They focus on the last 10 years. That's why I come up with the thing. You're going to be alive in 10 years. You should start investing like it. In 2013, prices are above 2008. Don't buy any real estate. It has to crash. So I close on a duplex. It's doubled in value. There's over about $2,500 a month in cash flow from that place now. It's my longest owned small multifamily. The one you buy today will be a struggle this year. It's going to be really hard to find a thing that has a positive cash flow that beats your area average. And when you do, every repair in that first year is going to feel like it's from your pocket. Every tenant issue is going to feel like a headache. But in 2035,
Yes.
you will look back and go, man, I can't believe it was only $600,000 for this duplex. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, folks, inflation is a feature. And the more you study this, right, we have a 50-year spreadsheet on this channel, onerentalatatime.com. Go get it. You can look at the historicals. All the data is sourced, so you can go check the source if you want to go build it yourself. But inflation is a government-driven feature. If you guys don't know, the biggest debtor in the world is the federal government.
Mhm.
And their goal, again, not stated, but it's clear as day, is they want to pay off the debt with cheaper dollars.
Mhm.
Right? That's the magic of the system. So they own the money, right? They're the ones printing it all. And if they tell you their game is inflation, then go get 30-year debt. I strongly suggest making sure it cash flows day one, so you don't become a forced seller, and then enjoy the journey. This is, what you brought up, Dion, is why I keep telling people the first 5 years suck, because you just haven't had time yet. Right. So, Matt, what do you think? You're just starting out. You got 0, you got 1. How are you using inflation to get on this ride?
I love Dion. This is not a comment against Dion.
Of course not.
Do not rely only on MLS.
I
You've
like
got to be, listen, if you want that, you can have it. You can have it. No one's stopping you. Dion will applaud you. He'll toast your laziness. I will make fun of you because now is the time. This is the time, Mike, because we were buyers in the crisis.
Yeah.
There's going to be crisis in pockets. There's going to be issues in pockets. If you are in a red state with no income tax, you are not able to buy single family homes and make any real amount of money. Now, let the real 2 people that make money in those states, let them put something in the comments. Congratulations to you too. You are the exception. You found some niche and some pocket in some plutonium filled town that likely is, that you can make money on. But I think the biggest issue that I have is right now, this is when people networking, network is your net worth.
Mhm.
Be doing these things now. I'm working with a couple of new investors right now, and they're just like, hey, this came up on the MLS. Hey, this came up on the MLS. And I was like, do I have the channel for you? And I don't want to see any MLS deals. They're not good enough. They're garbage. There's 50,000 people that all know how to use the MLS and know how to use the 90% of useless brokers that are out there. And 90% is being nice. It's probably higher. But the thing that I want to see is I want to see people creating and networking now, getting, making that goal of 2 a week, like you talk about, 2 a week. I did that for a year, and oh my word, like
Game
the
changer.
number of deals that come across my desk are absurd. In fact, now it's to the point where literally I have agents saying, hey, do you have anything, you think you might have anything coming? And I was like, yeah, why would I give it to you? I'm going to give it to another investor and like help another investor out without you. So I just want to implore people. I think that the best way to take advantage of what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years is to be building this massive network of people and become somebody that starts getting deals that come across your desk and you unearth something. Now, the thing that I think people get wrong is, well, I want to become a real estate agent so I can get a 25% referral fee and make a whopping $1,500. Who cares? Here's how the real rich person's economy works. If I create a deal in a town that I don't do business in, what do I do with it? I give it away. I give it to somebody else that's trying to accomplish what I accomplished. I just give it to them. I don't charge them for it. I'm not like, hey, well, what do you think would be fair as like an assign? F that. Wasted my time. I want to create a relationship, and the fastest way to create a relationship is make a deposit and make an investment in it and not just your time. So I think people get that part wrong. I think that the people that end up with the most relationships transactionally or even just in business, I think that's the winning. I think that's the winning formula for the next half a decade to decade.
Yeah. So let me kind of split the difference on this because I think I want to make sure that the ORAC community understands. I think the best way to learn the skill of real estate investing is on the MLS.
Yes.
Right. Because you can see the data, you can look at the data changes every day. You can start to learn the rhythm. You can start to learn average. You can start to earn good or great. All of those things don't happen with off-market deals because they're not consistent.
Agreed.
So you've got to go to that source. So anybody just starting out in 2025, go to the MLS, set up our criteria, look at it every day for 90 days, track everything that changes, and you will learn something. Second, and I was Dion for 15 years. I only bought stuff out of the MLS.
Me too.
Yeah.
It was the biggest hampering thing to my growth.
Agreed.
The worst thing I ever did.
Well, the worst thing you ever, never mind.
For me, it was the worst thing I ever did because I could be triple the size.
Yeah.
Triple the size easily if I had made those relationships in my first 5 years. Dion's year 12. And so he's got a lot of those relationships now. But Mike, you see with your business, it's off the charts. How many more? You're getting 10x the number of deals you're seeing now that you would on just MLS. But I agree with you. You have to start somewhere foundationally. MLS, yes.
Yeah. So again, folks, Matt brought it up. One of the 7 ORAT rules that you have to take seriously for the next 5 to 10 years is meet 2 new people a week. It may not feel like anything the first week, the first month, the first quarter, but by the end of the year, you will have 100 people that you didn't know before that could be lead flow. It could ask questions of, it could be resources for you. So Dion, what do you think? Matt took a shot at you being lazy.
Well, I took a shot at Matt in the Daily Financial News this morning.
Oh, you did? I didn't see it.
Somebody was talking about you're trying to get in shape.
Oh,
and they said, you were just trying to get fat to compete with the other 3 amigos. Yeah. And I said, no, that's not possible because I know 10 fat people and me and Matt are 8 of them.
That's not really a shot. So as much as
it's a fact.
It's a fact, right? We compete with each other. I think Matt has a point, but it's nuanced. Mm-hmm. That in the first decade of investing, every deal I saw that was off market was because the people bringing me them knew I was an inexperienced investor who might
You gotta be
take
careful.
the bait on a bad deal. So I think the new investor starting out, like Zuber, you say, check the MLS, learn this skill, so you can recognize a good deal off market. You pointed out, Matt, I'm 12 years in. I've still not seen one good off market deal from all of the people that I know. And I've been presented with, I want to say 50.
Yeah.
That they present them to me and to other people in our community where they're presenting them because it's such a bad deal. They're embarrassed to put it on the MLS. Now, once you have a big portfolio and you're known in your area for the person who knows and makes deals happen and can work with the city and has the contractors, people will go, this is a problem deal, but they would solve it. They would totally love this job. This is a value add for them. But that new investor in those first 10 years, I think.
You're absolutely right. I think when you're dealing it off market, and again, right, all of our reputations are like this. You sometimes get added to mass mailings or mass texting. Those aren't the deals that typically work, right? They have hair on them for some reason, and they're looking for a sucker. But every now and again, when you build a reputation and you're known as a closer, you'll get a phone call that says, here's the deal. I thought about you. Those are the ones you seriously want to look at. I haven't seen, and again, I have bought in my career, let's be accurate here, probably 35 to 40 deals off market. I would say almost all of them were direct phone calls or texts saying, call me, I've got one for you. I think there was a couple in 18 and 19 that were maybe mass mailings, and I was just fast. But most of them, to your point, Dion, are phone calls because they wanted to deal with me. Maybe I did a deal with them in the past, or they knew I bought that stuff. They just wanted the problem solved. So yeah, I think that's true. Let's wrap this one up, folks, with some closing thoughts. We'll go to you first, Matt. Inflation 2025. Talk to the ORAC community, and where can they find you?
Enjoy it. If you own rentals, you're going to enjoy it. Start making those connections now, building your network now. It's going to make a larger impact than you can possibly imagine. As you get, just flat out, I think that so long as it's great on MLS, but so long as you know how to do the math of a deal, you can figure out if it's a garbage deal or not. So just know how to do the math of a deal. If you, and there's no better teacher of that than One Rental at a Time than Mike, than Zub doing that. So if you know how to figure out the math of a deal, you create more deals out of MLS than you would. More importantly, you create good deals, but just take that same skill and carry it over to having conversation. There is a large number. So Dion did some great work on the silver tsunami. That didn't occur. And what's really interesting about the silver tsunami that didn't occur is that, guess what? There's a lot of silver tsunami landlords that are still out there that want an exit that will give you debt. Mm-hmm. And they're not getting rid of a bad deal. They're not getting rid of a lousy asset. They're purely transitioning in life. And that's where a lot of those relationships. So get into meetups, get into those things where you start to see, I won't say other landlords of Dion's age, because he's still like 10 or 12 years off of that number, or maybe at least 7, right? That where he's just like, yeah, I'll consider doing it. So I just think people need to be putting that effort forward. And I think that there's no too soon a time to start that. And where do you find me? 9 p.m. yelling at my screen, Lumberjack Landlord on YouTube on Thursdays.
There you go. Easter. And then Dion?
So I'll wrap up with a hypothetical. We talked about how inflation would impact the One Rental at a Time community, and we made the assumption that it would go up. If it goes down, if inflation goes down, here's the thing I don't think very many people understand. People said, we've got this guy back in office. We better get prices back to 2020 really quick. And that's not how inflation works. Even if inflation drops to 0, that doesn't mean things cost less. That's
Correct.
deflation.
Correct.
Well, see, disinflation, inflation, if it can go up, but if it goes down, that's when you still want to be buying the assets. It's still going to cost more. It's still going to take more currency to buy the asset that you're buying. And you can find me ranting about things like this right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom, every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, where the live streams last as long as the questions do. And sometimes that's only an hour and a half.
Folks, tune into these guys. Go ask them questions. They are nothing but value add. Thank you so much.